Cool, I think we're ready to get started. So everyone, thank you so much for coming out to CHIVR. CHIVR stands for Chicago VR. We host a VR, AR, mixed reality focused event once a month at various tech and advertising firms. And we've been doing this for about a year now. We are officially the largest VR meetup in the Midwest. And we're really excited to be here at Microsoft. Round of applause for Microsoft, thank you. So we're gonna host the panel for about an hour. Afterwards, what we're gonna do is we're gonna have a quick tour of Microsoft, see the server room, see all the fun toys that they get to play with. And that'll happen in that corner. So once the panel is done, just gather around that corner. Soren, raise your hand. You're gonna give everyone a quick tour, just 5-10 minutes. And then we'll break away. We'll do demos over here. And Microsoft's little demo, the HoloLens. So it's something for you guys to check out. It's really cool. Awesome. And I'm going to hand it off to Soren. Thank you so much for having us here.
Can I borrow that?
Yeah.
We're going to get you a lapel mic in just a sec.
Cool.
Okay, so my name is Soren Spicknall, and I am a Microsoft Civic Technology Fellow. I convinced these folks to make this month's event all about VR, AR, and mixed reality for social impact and for civic good. I want to welcome you to the space. Obviously, this is the Microsoft Innovation and Policy Center Chicago. We work on problems of social impact and civic impact here in this office as part of my team. And let's just talk logistics stuff. Because you're all here in this crowded room at one point or another. Some of you are going to need to use the bathroom. There are bathrooms down the hallway there. For simple information. Also, as Elina mentioned, this is CHIVR. It's in giant letters on the back. If you are tweeting tonight, feel free to use the CHIVR hashtag. But that's all sort of aside. I'm going to be on the panel, so I'm going to be talking way too much tonight anyway. So to begin with, I just want to welcome you into our space, and I hope you have a great time tonight.
Everyone kind of introduce themselves. Can you guys hear me?
No.
Oh, I've got the worst mic, darn it. So, my name is Elina. I founded CHIVR about a year ago with Dan and August. August, raise your hand, where are you? Right over there. And we literally started off by just having like 25 people show up to talk about VR, AR, and trends. And the whole mission for us has been to bring the Chicago community together. That way, content creators, enthusiasts can really share ideas and collaborate on projects. So at the end of all this, we'll have 3 pitches. So if you have a project that you need help with, start thinking. You'll have 30 seconds to come up and kind of tell the community a little bit more about what you're doing and see if you can get some help afterwards. Awesome. I'm gonna hand it off to you, Dan.
Who here, this is your first time coming to a CHIVR meetup? Could you raise your hand? Okay, look at that. Like half the group, so welcome. We hope it's an enjoyable time for you.
Soren, you introduced yourself already, but tell us a little bit more about... Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. We play it fast and loose here. Okay, so my name is Daniel Allen. I'm the UX director at a company called 3D Results. I'm also a creative director for a studio called Block Interval. And during this introduction time, I have a little 45-second video queued up. I don't know if we can show it right now. I don't have PhDs and things behind my name, but I have been working on VR for a couple of years, about 3 years now, from a creative and UX standpoint. So this is just what I've been up to. Thank you. So how does that tie into social VR? It's not a social experience, right? I think we typically think about social as an extroverted thing, like connecting people together. But we can't forget that there are a lot of introverts in this world. Actually, if you're an introvert, if you would consider yourself an introvert, raise your hand. I don't know. Any? Okay, decent number. And the rest are introverts that don't want to raise their hands. Okay. I get it. We think about connecting people to each other, but there's also this very real ability that we're going to have to change social consciousness, and that comes from the artists and how they communicate to people individually. So now we have this medium that's very personal. And also, I think something that I think a lot about, and that has been a big focus in the work that we've done with this game, is allowing for people with disabilities to have a way to have a VR experience that's sort of meaningful and emotional and things like that. So my aspect of things I'm going to be talking about from the indie game development standpoint and what it means to sort of touch people in an empathetic way. I don't know who's next.
I'll go ahead. So, like I said, my name is Soren Spicknall. I am a Microsoft Civic Technology Fellow, and what that means is that my day-to-day work focuses on leveraging different technologies to benefit humanity as a whole, but at a very granular level, working on specific projects, whether it's an event or a technical pilot or something right here in Chicago at the state level, at the national level, things that actually put emerging technologies like virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality to use in day-to-day fashion in government projects, in nonprofits, and so on, connecting disadvantaged populations to emerging technologies and so on. My three main focus areas at Microsoft are VR, blockchain, and data science for social good. And if there's anything that you want to talk to me about in terms of uniting those technologies, about connecting people with those technologies to each other, to their governments, and so on, I would love to hear about it, and I would love to talk about it.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Andy Johnson. I'm Director of Research at the Electronic Visualization Lab, which is part of computer science at UIC, down the road a bit. And I've been doing VR for almost 25 years now, since I first visited EVL when they were first building the Cave, the first of the major room-scale virtual reality devices, and decided, this is really cool, and I want to do this. So now I'm doing this there. It's really cool. We do a lot of work in collaborative visualization, getting people together in the same space, using data, trying to understand phenomena, mostly working with scientists, but occasionally also producing museum exhibits and commercial products. So a lot of what we want to do, we can't buy. So we end up working with the students, working with our manufacturers, and trying to create new technologies to actually let people work together better.
Hey, my name is Jordan White. I am the founder of Timewithspace. It's a talent management development company. Through that, working on interdisciplinary projects with my team, we developed a VR, AR, and experiential marketing company, a studio called Automotive. The reason for what we do is that we think that reconstructive storytelling in the digital age provides a lot of mediums for new media that's coming out that's shareable, multi-sensory, and allows us to work with narratives that can disrupt the mainstream as well as cultural norms. So we really try to create shared experiences by connecting a lot of different outlets that people have, whether it be music, visual art, experiential design, and also passions that people are very interested in. In terms of social causes, what we've been developing with Automotor is a project that is basically taking the story of Chicago youth and bringing it into a virtual reality narrative that follows the album of a music artist named Vile. So we worked on this project for the last 2 years, and what we're doing is taking him through the day in the life that his mother dies, and his traveling from his home to the hospital. Things that we bring up with this narrative are school closings, homicides, drug arrest, data visualizing, these stories, as well as talking about things like when someone is going to the hospital, having to travel to the north side from areas of the south side, areas of the west side, and what that means in terms of, a 16-minute ambulance ride versus 7 minutes, which could save a life versus someone passing on, transitioning to the other side. Since opening up the studio, we've also, we're right now in a work in progress that you guys will be able to experience of a project working with Bear Institute for Justice. What we're doing is data visualization of a web game where people are working through the cyclical challenges of the criminal justice infrastructure. And so basically what you see is there's 9 different interventions that we show. Through these different interventions, people are able to change the way that people are incarcerated. We're talking about average length of stay, the yearly average. And so what we're taking is, there's $1 million that go to every municipality through criminal justice grant. And a user is able to create, figure out the best interventions to bring down, these different numbers. And then through that, you're going to be able to share that with your local municipality, share it socially, so that everyone can be informed as well as understand the leadership.
And then when you demo, you can kind of go into a little more detail about the involvement of the project.
Yeah, sorry, I'm a bit nervous.
Oh, but you gotta stop.
So you guys will be able to learn more, but those are 2 projects that you'll be able to get a little taste of tonight.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming out to CHIVR. My name is Christopher Morrison. I'm also on the leadership team of CHIVR. I handle media, entertainment, and communications. I also am the founder and CEO of a local boutique production company, Robo Aerial. We use aerial robotics, aka drones, and 360 video and some rendering for storytelling. Companies reach out to me because a lot of brands are disconnected with their customer. So they usually have a problem, and VR is not the solution for every problem, but companies reach out to us mainly because a lot of companies, like I said, are disconnected from their customers. So how can we use immersive technology to engage their customers and connect with them on a more personal level? And so we use 360 video and different immersive tech experiences to help companies tell their story and connect more with their customers.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for introducing yourselves. And, we're just going to dive into the first question, which is, social impact for VR. Each panelist here has a different area of scope that they focus on and an area of importance that's important for them. So, Andy, I'm going to hand it off to you and tell us a little bit about kind of what social impact in VR means to you and what kind of project right now are you focusing on that would really highlight that?
So I think what we're seeing today really is, VR being really open to lots of people. And, VR sort of has always been there in the last generation, in the last 25, 30 years, behind the scenes in a lot of ways, in terms of a lot of design, in terms of, improving efficiency of things, or looking at earthquakes, or, basically looking at 3-dimensional data and trying to understand it for perhaps, let's say, societal good. And I think today what we're seeing a bit more is a lot more hands on the hardware, a lot more ideas, being able to be expressed through the hardware, and a lot more availability. Especially through people's cell phones, that you've got an almost ubiquitous technology that can help people, get into VR. And I think what I've seen over the last 25 years is, the excitement of VR doesn't change. The first time someone experiences, full head track VR, you get the same reaction you got 25 years ago. It's affecting. People really, it's an impact people are not expecting, even if they've heard about it over and over. So I think really, the power that we're trying to harness is, okay, how do you grab people? Okay, what do you do with it? now that you've just grabbed someone. And I think where it gets to be important is, how do you extend that experience? Because there is stuff that VR is really good for. But then, okay, you have to go back in the real world. And how do you take the experience out of VR and extend it? How it's not just storytelling within VR, but what do you do next? If I've been affected by this, by what I've seen, what I've experienced, how do I make a change in the real world because of that? And so, on our side, a lot of it's been, working, say, in the medical side with surgeons, a bit more of that, very much hands-on, individual, very sort of extensive experience. And I think now what we're really starting to look at is, okay, how do we, democratize this more? What are the effects now that more people can have these experiences, and how do we leverage that so it's not just, oh yeah, okay, that was fun, and you turn it off. There's what you experienced in VR and the real world. We really want to be, how do we tie those together? And I think that's a very unsolved problem, but it's really good today to have everybody trying to figure that out.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And Soren, back to you at Microsoft. What are you guys focusing on specifically in that space?
So I actually wanted to jump right off of something you had said, translating the concepts of VR as something that's fun or something that can affect you in the moment, but actually turning that into a reaction that causes you to want to create a change in your world. There are a number of emerging technologies out there that I work on. I said earlier my main focus areas are data science, blockchain, and VR. And in certain ways, it's easier to translate data science and blockchain applications to civic tech, to gov tech, to social good spheres than it is to translate VR to those spheres, partially because cost of entry issues and so on, and we might talk about that a little bit later. But when it comes to any emerging technology of this sort, I am truly of the mind that if we are not making it work for everyone, then we are not making it work in the first place. And I think that it is incredibly important to use VR experiences, empathetic experiences, to spur people to take action, run somebody through. There's a great example of an application where somebody is run through an interrogation in a socially repressive state in the 80s. And they understand how various unethical, illegal interrogation techniques take place. And they can use that as an ethical foundation for their understanding of the world around them politically. Things like that on the empathetic side are very important, but we're also seeing a lot of very interesting applications on the practical side. In classrooms, doing virtual chemistry experiments, especially stuff that would be too dangerous to do in a real classroom. And I think that that's where a lot of the potential exists right now, both those empathetic and those practical experiences, and that's what I'm working on strategizing.
Nice. And I mean, which industries are spending the money within social VR and impact? Like, is healthcare really spending the money? Education, government? Where do you guys see trends in terms of actual clients and buying and making these? Anyone jump in? Yeah.
Yeah, it's been kind of tough, The big thing that we've found is we've kind of been pushed as seeing ourselves as artists and seeing ourselves as a studio to remain sustainable and to find where those clients are. So we started off in VR kind of based off of this music project, and we were selling what we were doing to Sony Music, to Capitol Records, and it was hard to see the adaptation for them. They were like, you have to work with the artists themselves, and they have to force it on us based on their influence. Through that, we started seeing activations, basically trade shows or spaces where you're working on a campaign for a product. The real lucky thing for us with this VR project is that it's funded from MacArthur Foundation. So if you have these social good foundations and you can attach new media and a new way to interact with the population and bring people into the narrative that's been existing, since before slavery in this country, then you can actually connect the dots. So that's kind of what we found in this space. It's a lot of searching and a lot of people saying, oh, this is great, and then you bring a budget to them, and they're like, oh, well, let's push that a year ahead, The other thing that we've really realized is it is something, this is a DIY industry, and if you create the momentum and you're able to get it to people, then you're able to spread awareness and collective consciousness. And what we found, is we're focused on web VR because of the accessibility issue. A lot, talking about UIC with one of the very first VR caves, that we've been able to experience. You have to go to an institution to be able to get enough funding to build that. And then that's an incestual community that gets to experience that. So bringing it out to these activations, trade shows, it gives people a glimpse, but you really have to be able to bring it to the home, and you have to make it at a price point that people already have in their pocket. There's no added, funding that needs to go into it from the consumer side, no added expense. So I think, what we've seen with AR is really, with Snapchat filters, is kind of this glimpse into case studies, and if we can adapt the types of interactions that people are used to with their mobile devices and within their the ways that they are experiencing this media, and then adapting it to people who are paying basically advertising campaigns, and then kind of bridging that to different social campaigns is kind of the best way that we've seen in our experience so far.
I think that you're right that you brought up the MacArthur Foundation. High network nonprofits, and especially nonprofits that are driven by a specific technical mission, I believe are a great bridge to starting to explore the topics of VR for social impact and VR in civic technology. The MacArthur Foundation is one great example. Another great example is Code for America, which is all about civic tech. And I guess I've used that term a lot, and I should probably define it a little bit. Civic technology, very broadly defined, is technology that utilizes open government data sets to benefit the residents of a city or to benefit people who are impacted by government decisions. And that can range everywhere from independent and adversarial technology, like something demonstrating the breadth of a problem with unethical policing practices, all the way to technology that is government tech. So a text-in application that allows you to apply for public benefits much easier than a paper application. But anyways, Code for America has a fellow named Laurent Dorvillius, who is a UX designer and a VR developer who's working with the government of Anchorage, Alaska on a number of augmented reality apps for the residents of Anchorage, Alaska. And it's an ongoing project, and I'm not sure exactly what's coming out of it, but she, I believe, is one of the leaders through Code for America, and therefore Code for America is one of the leaders in really exploring how VR can be used for activating citizens to be able to interact with their governments more effectively and to be able to interact with each other and build coalitions together. You had mentioned health.
Yeah.
The health industry, I think you have a lot going on at EBL, as you mentioned, related to health. That is a very, very big opportunity point as well for VR. It's not classic civic tech, which is my field, so I won't go drone on about health, and I don't know that much about it, but I know there's a lot of interest in that
How many
area.
people here are in the health field? Raise your hands. Okay, about 5? Got it. And you actually have a personal story with the Make-A-Wish Foundation, right? Kind of helping out.
Well, I haven't done VR for
Yeah.
Make-A-Wish, but I mean, so my son has cystic fibrosis, and he's hospitalized a lot, so that's been something I've been thinking about, and it really strongly influenced a lot of the design decisions that Block Interval made as far as how our game would be played, because I've spent a lot of time in the hospital with my son, and if you've got a family member or if you've been in the hospital for a long time, it's a grind. It depends on what you're there for or whatever, but you usually have limited mobility because you might be sitting in a bed and you're tied up to some IVs and things like that. Maybe you have some limited arm motion. So it's already been proven that VR has a strong pain mitigation ability. So thinking about how can people who are immobilized be able to see new vistas and learn new things and connect with people, because it's a very isolating experience to be in a hospital room. So I think VR and AR are really going to open up the hospital experience once it's gotten cheap enough and every hospital room has sort of disposable tech and things. But yeah, I don't know. I'm interested to know if you guys, what you guys know or what you predict maybe could be on the horizon for, you know, this technology as it could be used in a hospital. And, you know, many of us are going to be spending time in the hospital over the rest of our lives for various reasons. And it might be interesting to know, like, what could we possibly expect to happen?
I mean, I could say, you know, something briefly that we're, you know, a lot of where we've found partners in this has been in rehabilitation, where you basically have someone who, you know, who suffered an injury and has to, you know, repeatedly do a motion, whether it's, you know, walking back and forth or even just, you know, using their arm repeatedly. And, you know, that's incredibly boring just to be, again, you're in the room, you're doing this, it's the same room, okay. But, you know, with VR or, you know, other technologies, suddenly you could make it a bit more gamified, you could make it a bit more fun, you could try and reinforce positive behavior a bit more, or even just put them in a different place every week that they're doing this. So there's at least more sensory stimulation going on while they're doing the work. So that's sort of really nice low-hanging fruit that still, you know, really positively affects people's quality of life. And, you know, frankly, you know, the students get jobs from doing it, and the patients are happier, and the clinicians are happier. So it's a really good win-win situation.
Awesome. And to kind of move on from that topic, Chris, you did a project for a little bit more on the commercial side of things, right? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it's funny. I wanted to one more thing about like what Dan was saying. Sorry. One more thing, kind of like what Dan was saying, to even take it a step further. You know, not only pain management, but kind of like what I was saying earlier. How can we use VR to make? How can we? As far as social impact is concerned, we need to connect with one another. You know, we're all from different walks of life. We're all from different races and places. You know, I think about it, you know, from like a standpoint of like trans rights, gender rights. You know, Muslims, African Americans, other races. You know, what is it like to be in their shoes? What is it like to live a day in their life? How can we empathize and sympathize and, you know, connect with others using immersive technology? And I think that's one of the big deals about, you know, where this is going to be socially a huge deal, as you know, as far as that. And to get back to what you were saying about the project we worked on, we did something for a local nonprofit, Friends of the Chicago River, because they reached out to us because they said they read an article in the New York Times how people were using VR for fundraising, because it's such an experience. If you can kind of understand what other people are going through, you're more able to donate. You're going to donate more money. So they have this fundraising gala every year where they basically raise their whole budget for the entire next year. And they said, why don't we, you know, their whole thing is, you know, how can we make the Chicago River better? We want to clean up the trash. We want to, you know, the water's dirty. You know, the wildlife. You know, plus all the residents of the Chicago area use the river for recreation. So how can we tell the story of the Chicago River and immerse people in that experience? So we took a boat and put audio sensors all the way around it, and then we also put 360 cameras around the boat in different places, and we drove up and down the Chicago River, and we did 360 video basically of the river, and we talked about the wildlife, we talked about the river, all its residents, you know, recreational, you know, and just everything about the river. And they were able to raise $30,000 more than they raised the year before. You know, the mayor went through it, a lot of people went through it. I have my little table over there on the far side of the room, so I can put you through that experience if you're interested. Come see me.
Awesome. And then, what are some of the you know, best practices when it comes to creating you know, ethical VR? What would you say is some of the things that you keep on top of mind? Maybe one thing that you want to highlight.
I think.
Speak up a little bit, everyone.
Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Raise your hand if you cannot hear me. All right, I'll try to speak louder. So one of the things that's really important in the project that we're working on for criminal justice reform, for jail reform, is being able to design with empathy and firsthand experience. So some of the case studies that we've looked at is projects out of the Knight Foundation, out of VR for Good, with Oculus VR for Good, where they're taking projects where they're bringing you into a jail cell, they're bringing you into a prison, and you're hearing stories, the firsthand accounts. That's been really good for us to reference, as well as I've worked in criminal justice reform for 5 years, and that was really important for Vera as a customer, that I have that understanding doing policy initiatives with Brennan Center, with Wisconsin Innocence Project, with Green Legal Aid, and having a criminal justice minor in college from UW-Madison. I think without those things, we wouldn't have a bridge between our design and development team and with the customer. So I think when you're forming teams and you're making sure that you have all of your boxes checked, it's definitely important to have people with firsthand accounts, firsthand knowledge, and try to get as much research as you can from that perspective and bring that to the client, because the client a lot of times doesn't know what they want, and you have to sometimes bridge the gap between the technology being there and that actually having an impact. But very importantly, and I would say potentially more importantly, is the narrative needs to connect with not only your audience but also the story that you're sharing, because at the end of the day, we're all storytellers here, and what we need to do is be able to bring people into these spaces that they don't have access to. And with doing 360 live action and doing volumetric VR and doing any type of storytelling in the CG sense as well, if we just make it all fantasy, then I think it loses its touch.
I think that domain level knowledge and that understanding is so important to creating an empathetic experience. It involves the mechanics of game development a large portion of the time when creating a VR experience. But if we go into an experience that we create that's supposed to have a political purpose or have a purpose in furthering social good, sometimes we need to get ourselves out of that mindset of, I'm building a game. Your experience may function like a game when you're developing it. It may look like a game in many ways. It may use all the same tools as a game, but you may not want to think of it as a game for very good reasons. You may want to think of it in terms of a project to connect people to an idea, more so than anything else. There's another great example, Daniel Contreras, who ran, or possibly still runs, he actually works for Microsoft now. He ran a civic tech consultancy called Optimista. And a large portion of his work involved getting kids from Archer Heights and other neighborhoods on the southwest side involved in a high-tech VR and AR workforce. He ran a summer camp every summer out of our offices here where he would teach VR, AR, and mixed reality technologies, bring in experts to a group of high school students from underprivileged neighborhoods. And he would ask them how they wanted to leverage this technology in order to further social good. And many times the answer was creating an application similar to that river application we were talking about that would allow people who wouldn't necessarily find themselves in their neighborhood to experience their walk to school or to experience daily interactions that they had. Because if we're being 100% realistic, there are people in this city and there are people in this room who genuinely would never set foot south of Roosevelt or west of wherever. And that's not necessarily something that can be justified, but it is something that's true. And one way to connect people when there's that mental barrier there is to provide a virtual experience and to allow people to understand that Inglewood is not just some zone of hellfire, or that Archer Heights is not whatever somebody might think Archer Heights is. And understanding what the goal of the person going into this project is an incredibly important part of that process.
And just to piggyback off of that, one best practice that I would mention is testing. Like, I would just underscore that, like, no matter what you think you know about VR or AR as you're coming up with an idea or cracking open Unity or whatever you're doing, it doesn't really matter until you get people into the headset and actually trying it, and then you have a conversation with them, or you conduct surveys or things like that after the fact to try to understand, did it make them sick? Did any part of it make them uncomfortable? Was there anything that was too intrusive or offensive or hurtful or whatever, unless that was the goal going into it. And I think also giving, I think when it comes to things like online harassment, giving players a way to control their environment and to be able to block people or limit the behavior of someone who's harassing them. There's a number of, they need to be able to get out of the situation, and that's the whole point. It's virtual, it's not real. And so I would just mention that is by doing a lot of testing and by doing a lot of research into best practices for, I guess, online harassment and kind of social interaction in VR. We have a lot of new things we're going to be encountering, and we also really, I think, something else to keep in mind is we really don't know what we're doing with the human mind at this point. Like we kind of are figuring it out, and we're trying to, but we don't know what, we're not probably that far off before we get to our first case of, someone getting PTSD in the bedroom, and just from putting on a headset. I'm sure we're only so many years away from our first person dying in VR or something like that, just because of, maybe they had a weak heart or something. So I mean, the media is going to sensationalize things, but I think we as developers, as the community, or people who are involved in this process have to be really hyper conscious of what we're doing and doing a lot of testing, because we really are holding people's minds in our hands.
And the more research and the more product testing you do, it's just like when a new product goes to market, the better the outcome and the more successful the experience is going to be.
One other thing I'd add is, especially in these environments, it's important to know who you are when you start the environment. Because a lot of some of the early 360 videos, they would try to put you in really interesting places where no human being would actually stand. It's like occasionally it's like you're in the middle of this ring of people who are talking. And it's like, why am I here? I'm very uncomfortable. Am I supposed to be uncomfortable? I wouldn't be standing here. If you're in a reality, you'd move to the ring, or you would, if you're not the topic. So, I think you have to be really careful about what the story behind the person is. I mean, one really effective world I experienced last year from some students, they just kind of dropped me into it. And it's like, okay, I'm at a birthday party, wait a minute, and I'm raising my hands, and I'm kind of going, okay, apparently I'm an 80-year-old African-American male. It's like, what is going on in this world? And so it's taking me time. And it's like, okay, am I supposed to be concerned about this? And then it turns out it's about, Alzheimer's and, reacting to that and going to the hospital and how you're treated. But initially, there's this, what am I doing? Who am I? And so, so there's a lot of importance of the narrative and the character and, am I myself in this world or am I someone else? Because both are totally valid. I could be experiencing the world as someone else, but you really need to tell people up front, if you don't want that shock as part of the experience, who they are, what is the purpose of this to some extent.
And have you guys noticed any rules, regulations, or even ethics that are in writing right now that have become standardized?
Use on children is definitely a big issue right now. I mean, we've gone down to the middle school level, and even that's kind of, I mean, mostly it's issues of stereo vision developing and mental pathways developing, so there are definitely some interesting ethical issues as you get younger, and and this is also true of just any digital technology. When should people first be experiencing it versus experiencing the real world?
I think that at some point we are definitely going to see, I don't know if it has happened yet, but I think we are going to see either from a trade association or from ACM some sort of push for codifying ethics for VR, AR, and mixed reality. I used to do some work for the Center for the Study of Ethics in the Professions, which keeps a database of professional ethics codes, and I don't think I've read anything that is already codified on the topic. That's a very interesting and important topic to consider.
Yeah, and that note, we actually, haven't had a chance to put together, a formal code of ethics for CHIVR. We finally did. So Dan, maybe you can tell us a little bit about what we did put together.
August.
Yeah, August. Where is he? August? He stepped out. He bailed. That's it. He ran away. He ran away with the ethics. That's it. Party's over.
Oh, there he is. I believe it's the Austin VR meetup that put out a code of ethics, and they licensed it under fair use. So we kind of ripped theirs off and made some changes and things like that.
Sorry, I got distracted.
It's okay.
Hi, I'm August. Thank you everyone for coming out. I really appreciate it. It's great that you're here. We are introducing a code of conduct at CHIVR. We are, yay, right? We're becoming a large enough organization that, you know, it's actually kind of surprising that we haven't thought about this before.
Good timing.
Yeah, and so it's really simple. It's really common sense stuff, but we've codified it. So if we want people to feel safe at these events and feel like they're welcome here, I'm just gonna I'm gonna gloss over, like just hit the bullet points on this code of conduct here. But the whole thing is on our website, chivr.org, CHIVR.org. There's a link in the top right corner to it. Rule number 1, don't be a dick. Okay? It's really that simple. Just don't be a dick. Bullet point number 2, you're welcome here. We want to recognize and embrace humanity, and consent is rad. Okay, so if you want to take somebody's picture, ask them first, right? If they're in VR, they can't see you taking their picture because they got a headset on, right? So make sure you've got permission first before you take someone's picture in VR, because they can't say, hey, yeah, no problem. Or if they don't want their picture taken, they don't want their picture taken. This one should be pretty obvious. Don't physically assault people. See rule number 1. Don't harass people. See rule number 1. Thievery sucks. There are people giving demos here. They've got a lot of really expensive equipment. It's not cheap. Don't take it. All right? It's not that hard. No weapons, drugs, or alcohol. Now, some of these events, we do serve alcohol in here. We just ask that you come to the event sober and not high as a kite. Once you leave, you can do whatever the heck you want. I don't care, right? But we want people to be respectful and in control of themselves. So don't get messed up and don't come here messed up, right? Another bullet point, moderation is awesome, kind of going along this theme of, don't come here drunk. Don't touch anybody in VR. If they're wearing a headset and you come up and grab somebody, or if they're playing a horror game, right? That's scary enough. Like the meanest thing you can do to somebody when they're playing a horror game is grab them, right? It's not cool. We will kick you out. We will ban you from CHIVR events. If you can't follow these rules, we will kick you out. And we have no problem doing it. We haven't had any problems yet, and hopefully we never will. Hopefully we'll never have to, hey, point to this document and say, hey, you broke these rules, you're kind of a dick, GTFO, right? So we've implemented this code of conduct. The full code of conduct, it's kind of cute, actually, is on our website. And big thanks, hey, to Austin VR for, I had this great conversation at the Oculus conference with some of the guys who run Austin VR, and it was just like, why don't we have this? Why don't we do this? So we implemented it, and we're doing it, and we're going to follow these rules. We're going to be nice to each other. This is a nice community. We want people to have fun here and not be dicks to each other. So that's that.
Thanks, August.
Yep.
On that note, I do want to open it up to some pitches, right? And then we'll see the questions for last. So, Chris, if you want to.
All right, let's get those hands up who's never been to CHIVR before. We want to see some new faces. Oh man, that's what's up. All right. So this is invitation only. I'm going to pick you at random. We want to learn about you. We want to learn about why you're here, why you're interested in our community, and welcome. And also, we want to know about, what you've got going on VR. If you have a project, maybe you need a developer, maybe you need a marketing person, a business person. It doesn't matter. Whatever your VR project is, or just a creative pitch. We'll give you, a couple seconds to come up here and tell us what you got going on. So let's see those hands again. If you've never been to CHIVR. All right. I'm gonna spin around a couple of times. All right. This guy.
I should have known.
That was easy, right?
Yeah, pretty easy.
All right. Stand up, though. We want everybody to see your pretty face.
Thank you.
All right, brother.
Hi, my name is Rob Mohammed. Been a fan of VR ever since the mid-1990s when I was first experiencing those virtuality helmets that were like 4 pounds in your face. Last year I got myself a Vive and a Rift, and have been rather satisfied with it, and I've been showing off to my friends. So much so that my computers got stolen earlier this year, and I had to repurchase them. But anyway, I know. Well, I don't think they weren't a part of the group. That's the problem here, you see. Anyway, very quickly, one of the things that I was hoping to work on, and I do have like a few of them in my head, but they haven't really been codified into anything just as of yet. I'd like to rebuild the World Trade Center. Basically, I'd like to bring people into the original Twin Towers, the lower level atriums and all that there, and just have them to experience what it was like to be in that particular space before its destruction. I wouldn't focus on its destruction. I wouldn't focus on anything regarding 9/11 or anything after that. It would just be being in the midst of it. And I've been trying to look for models of it. I don't think I could be able to build it myself off of the blueprints because I'm not that great at architecture. But that's one of the things I'm hoping to bring into Unity and see if I could be able to play around with that there. So that's pretty much it.
Thank you so much.
The architect was the same architect for this building.
Really? Nice.
So if you're interested in that project, feel free to give us a hand after the piano. All right, hands again. All right. Let's get a lady this time. All the way to the back of the room, white shirt.
One, two, three, go.
Hi, my name is Jay. I am
Speak up a little bit. Speak up.
Okay, my name is Jay. I am a UX designer by training. I have roots in history and linguistics. That's my background. And I don't really dabble in VR, but I'm interested in learning more. I've been to the EVL. That was a really great experience. And I used to work for Monkey Bars. We were a startup that did hackathons all over Chicago, so I have an interest in new and emerging tech. And I'm also a meditator, and I'm very interested in VR's relationship to environment and how it could connect us more deeply to our bodily experiences. And I'm not really sure what that experience is for people. I would love to see VR of historical places and civilizations and, expand our understanding of the, pre-colonial world in ways that could challenge a very Eurocentric worldview.
Thank you so much. And we'll do one more. This time, let's see the hands of somebody who has like a VR project that they want to tell us about and they need help with. All right, my guy back here. Yeah, you. 1, 2, 3, go.
Hey everyone, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right, good. My name is Sanjay Patel. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company here based in Chicago. We're a small band of people in the River North area. In fact, a couple of us are here. And what we're doing is bringing to market a device that looks like this. It's a 3D camera, really. And essentially, we're building the technology to do holographic real-time capture of people so they can be teleported into AR and VR environments. The technology is actually real. We have it. We'd love to show it to you. And we'd love to get people involved from CHIVR into Personify. So let's consider this the start of a dialogue. So if you want to chat afterwards, I'll be here. Simon is here as well. He's our CTO. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and make sure you see Elina or Dan afterwards. We'd love to have you bring your products to the next Shivers coming up and demo and share it with our community. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Now we're gonna open up to questions, okay? We have about 7 more minutes left, and then we can break away and do a little tour of Microsoft and then try the demos. We'll wrap up around 9 o'clock. So yeah, questions. Right over here.
We are a new sports marketing company here in Chicago, and we're getting a lot of questions about VR in the sports world, particularly recruiting for college athletes. So I'm wondering if you guys have any thoughts on how VR, AR, MR can enhance the recruiting efforts for universities, especially for athletes.
Might be an Alina question, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I do staffing and recruiting, as a day job, and one of the things that I always am faced with is getting that profile quickly, right? To really find out what the person really, has in terms of skill sets, right? So being able to put someone in that environment where you get to see not only their physical abilities, but also their personality in a quick scope, and getting that video experience right off the bat, I think would be the most effective. Now, I don't dabble into the actual technologies that would be effective for that. I think that would actually be a good question for Jordan, if you want to kind of latch on that a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a few sports, like basketball games and concerts, things of this nature. It brings you into the environment, so I think if you can, get some capture of the coach, in the huddle, something with the coach, like on the sidelines, so that the player can understand that perspective of what it's going to be like with this person for 4 years. That could be great. In terms of off the court, if you look at something like even the early, what's the group out of, sorry, I'm having a brain fart right now, but there's a group out of Atlanta. They brought you in. It was like one of the first music videos. There's Keith Charles Spacebar, and he brings you into their house. It's this collective, and it's a music video, and you go in a few rooms, and you know what it's like to hang out with this group, this music collective. So bring them into the house, the sports house, so that they can understand what that dynamic's like. Basically, if you watch the movie Hoop Dreams, use that as a reference. It's a Chicago film based on these, there's kids coming from grade school, high school, and then they go to their college. And you see the recruiting process there, and really what you get at is what is attracting you, to this campus. So some tours of the campus would be great. I mean, basically give them a feeling of their first step so that they know if they want to work with you or not before wasting their time, because I believe they only have 3 visits, correct, with the NCAA. So give them the most value and let them know that you care about them before they even decide to step foot.
And it's an emotional connection, right? So creating a story quickly and having that emotional tie to that story, I think, is the most effective way to use that technology in that space. Anyone here in the sports industry, raise your hand. Anyone? No?
I have some ideas too, and the Bulls and the Blackhawks are both my clients, so if you want to chat with me afterwards, come.
Thumbs up on that,
hang out.
yeah. Questions? Right over here.
Hi, so primarily we talked about using VR for social good and the empathy that you can create, but AR is kind of a different beast when it comes to that. I was wondering if the panel could sort of speak to that, where they see AR's role in social good.
I would love to talk about that. There's actually a fantastic example that came from the same summer camp that I had mentioned earlier. The kids from the summer camp partnered with the Chicago Architecture Foundation, which recently created a graphic novel about the plan for Chicago, the architectural plan, whose name I am blanking on right now. But it's called No Small Plans.
Well,
Daniel Burnham.
Yeah, the Burnham Plan. And it is a major initiative that they're taking to connect to children, to connect to different groups that their traditional programming doesn't necessarily connect to. What this summer program did was they partnered with the AR app Think that's based in town here, And they created overlays that tied themselves to a page of a book. So you put your phone over the book, and the app finds a graphic on that page, and now there's a video related to the construction of a particular building, or there's a time lapse of photos of that building over time, or that street over time, or there's a 3D recreation of a trolley that once ran down a street. That's one really cool educational example. I think that there's a lot of potential for AR in education and mixed reality in education. We're going to be doing a HoloLens demo a little later, actually, and I'll touch on that. There's also a lot of opportunity for three-dimensional AR or mixed reality in health tech. In terms of, so right now we have remote surgery that exists. You can do surgery with robotics from behind a screen. And the current interfaces for interacting with that process might be able to be improved by having a three-dimensional representation of what's going on. That's just spitballing, and obviously that's not something I'm actively developing, but it is a potential application. I think there's a lot out there.
Awesome. One more.
I just wanted to say on AR.
Yeah.
AR is really good at lifting the hidden, right? So we worked with a project that tried to get millennials to understand that slave labor still happens. And so if you looked at this table, like we could break it down and see where it was made and talk about the people who made them, the country they made it at, the wage that they got paid. And it was really, we did it online, but I could see AR being kind of like an experience where you look at everyday objects like your shirt, a table, a chair, and then you get this hidden information on how this was made through slave labor. So like shrimp at Walmart, how it's made by men and women who are farmers in Bangladesh who only get paid a couple of cents. But here you're looking at the end product because you don't see the supply chain, right? No, that's invisible. So AR is really good at making the hidden visible. And so if you're thinking about social good, what are those hidden messages that you would like to show people that you can't normally just kind of tell them? You can, it almost like they glaze over if you talk about it in text or even in photos. And so that might be a really good use of AR.
And are you in the education space, or are you currently working on a project in that
I
space?
work at IBM.
Okay. Nice, awesome.
On that subject of hidden information,
Yeah.
there's also a ton of conversation around bringing data visualization into the third dimension through augmented experiences.
Absolutely.
And that, especially for my specific focus for civic tech, which is often focused on open government data sets, you can, I don't know if you know this, but the city of Chicago has a data portal where you can view the salaries of every employee of the city of Chicago. You can view every crime that's been committed for 15 years. You can view every housing inspection that's been done for 15 years. And leveraging data like that, leveraging corporate data sets if we're talking on the commercial side, utilizing three-dimensional environments and imagined environments for data visualization that isn't possible or is infeasible, cost-wise or logistically, with our current tools is a very, very promising application.
Yeah, we did it for land trust in Inglewood. So we took vacant lots and we put 3D images over them to see what it could be for investors. So, you know, real estate is location and imagery, right? And we didn't want to show them the broken bottoms in the lots. We wanted to show, if they invested, what it would look like if you plugged in, and 360 and AR was great for that.
And then we have Helio Visions over there. They're going to demo. Ted, or Calvin or Tyler, one of you guys can maybe just tell us a little bit more about what you guys are doing in that space.
Yeah, we're working on we use drones to 3D scan properties and buildings. So we take 2D photos and turn those into a 3D model. We also do aerial mapping that we then can place those 3D models in that space, similar to what you're talking about. We'll have some demos of that over here a little bit later today.
Awesome, yeah, thank you guys. Great. So on that note, we are all done with the panel. Like I said, please gather over there in that corner, take a quick tour and just see all the toys Microsoft has to offer.
And specifically, there's a little lounge outside the door there. I won't want everybody sardined right there. There's a little lounge beyond the door. I will meet everybody out there in just a couple minutes.
Before you guys get up as well, we're hosting the next Shiver at 1871. It'll be November 15th. It's always on a Wednesday from 6 to 9. Come out. It'll be posted on our Meetup page, on our Slack page, our Facebook page, our website. And Dan, you want to make a plug for our Slack page?
Yeah, if you'd like to join, if you'd like to continue the conversation here as we've been doing, we do every month, you can join our Slack. If you want to send me an email, dan@chivr.org, CHIVR.org, I will send you an invite and you can join our community and get updated on all the new advancements.
Take some pictures, hashtag Shiver. That way we can, see what you guys are doing and posting online. And if you guys have an awesome space and you'd like to host the next Shiver, come talk to me. Love to get connected with you guys. Thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you.